Number 246, percents, fractions, and decimals. Write the following as a percent and a decimal. Now, in previous videos, we have converted from decimals to percents, and I believe fractions to decimals, but we have not converted all three, so let's go ahead and do that here in video 246. Now, in this video, what's going to make these problems a little bit different is that we're not just working with numbers out of 100. We're going to be working with some other values where you can't quite convert things quite as easy. So here, now these first four are going to be the easiest. And the reason is because you can change the denominators to make them out of 100, therefore giving us exact percents. Because if you look in the previous video, a definition of a percent is basically a fraction out of 100. So, if you have 3/25ths, we can obviously multiply that by a multiple of 4 for both the numerator and denominator. So instead of, if you shoot 3, you make 3 out of 25 free throws, which is not very good. You could then say, well, over the course of 4 games, you at that pace, you would make 12 out of 100, so therefore 12%. That's exactly what we're going to do for these first 4. We're going to try to convert each of these fractions to having them out of 100. That's what we're going to try to do, and it's actually pretty straightforward and pretty easy. 3/25ths is obviously, like we just said, 12%, or 12/100ths, which is the decimal, because we're converting to both percent and decimal. For 54 over 300, 54 300ths, we would divide both the numerator and denominator by 3 to get us 18 out of 100, thus 18 100ths, therefore 18%. Now, if you have 13 out of 10, we would then, we could just simply write that as 1.3 to get the decimal right away. Then, of course, the percent, just multiplied both the numerator and denominator by 10 to give us 130 over 100, which is 130%. Then 4 out of 5, that's easy. We can convert that to 8 out of 10, which is then 8/10ths, and therefore 80 out of 100, which is, of course, 80%. Now, here's where things get a little bit more interesting. We have 13/16ths. Now, in this case, 16 is not a factor of 100. In other words, 100 is not a multiple of 16. So we cannot just convert this fraction over to a percent by using 100 as a denominator. We could, however, conclude that we're probably in the 80s or 90% range here, because 13 out of 16 is definitely more than half. And actually, we probably would conclude that it's not quite 90%, but we're probably working with somewhere 80, somewhere 80%, something like that, because obviously 12 out of 16 is 3 out of 4, so we're working with something higher than 75%. So, the way we would do this is long division. And of course, there's videos on long division, so if you forgot or you need to review that, we would basically take 16 and try to divide it into 13, which you cannot do, which is why this is part of a whole number. So you could put a 0 here in this first spot, because 16 does go into 13 0 times. So I could put a 0 here and call it 0.8 and go on from there. But nonetheless, 13 is 13.000. You can just continue to add as many zeros as you want. Take a look at the video on terminating decimal to review that concept. But we would then take 16 into 130. Now, what I did here, now obviously if you have a calculator, you can just type 13 divided by 16 and you'll get 0.8125. Then you've got to know how to convert that back to a percent. But so if you had a calculator, you could just type in 13 divided by 16 and it'll give you this, and then you got to convert it to a percent. If you didn't have a calculator, you'll just take the 16 divided to 130 to get 8 times to get 128. Then you'll subtract to get 2, bring down the 0, 16 goes into 20 once, multiply, subtract to get 4, bring down another 0, 16 goes into 40 twice for 32, subtract get 8, bring down yet another 0, 16 and 85 times, which gives us exactly 80. And the moment you get a 0 remainder, you have found an exact division. So therefore we stop there and we call it 8,125 10,000ths, if you wanted to convert that back to the decimal and pronounce it the most accurate way. And then, of course, 81.25%. Change the following percent to a fraction and a decimal. Now here you have 26%, 4.4%, and 236%. Let's take a look. 26% obviously is 26 100ths. So therefore, 13/50ths. There's your fraction, 13 out of 50. 4.4%, or really 4 4/10 of a percent, is really the correct pronunciation. 4 4/10%. Would convert to 44 1,000ths. 0.044 is the common pronunciation, but this is really 44 1,000ths. There's your there's a fraction. Of course, you'd want to reduce the fraction to 11 2/50ths. So 11 out of 250. Then, of course, we have 236%. Well, we know that percents are out of 100, so therefore, to convert to a decimal, you can move the decimal over 2 places. So then 236% means more than twice the amount of something. And then, of course, this percent, or excuse me, this decimal converts directly over to that fraction because you have a 6 in the 100ths position. Then just reduce the fraction 36 over 100 to get 9/25ths. And there you have it, 2 and 9/25ths. So there you have percents, fractions, and decimals.